Hello and welcome to the FatBoss Guide to Kromog of Mythic difficulty in the Blackrock Foundry.
Yes, and this fight has remained relatively the same. It's pretty much do heroic but do it really well. However, it has got a whole new phase where you got to destroy some pillars while being knocked up, otherwise you get insta-killed. It's pretty goddamn cool.
Yeah. Now for this encounter you should bring 2 tanks, bring 4 to 5 healers. We would recommend that you stick with 5 just for your first kills, it just makes everything a lot easier. And bring a mixture of DPS, but try and bring as little melee as possible. They're not really all that strong on this fight. Rets are kind of nice for the hand phases, but for the pillar phase, which we'll be talking about next, melee aren't all that great. Balanced druids, on the other hand, are fucking insane. Bring as many balanced druids as you can.
So the new mechanic that has been introduced into this fight is the Rune of the Trembling Earth. Now this is a 25-second cast where he will stop doing all of his other abilities and all of his melee hits. What he will do is spawn little circles underneath players' feet, and if you don't move from them, you'll be knocked up and take a lot of damage. So make sure you do avoid them. This means that the ranged DPS will be moving a lot, so do chain your foxes if you've got them. During this phase he will spawn 3 pillars that you need to kill. These pillars spawn in a random order, but they spawn in 3 set places, on the left, in the middle, and on the right. Now the first pillar will spawn after around 5 seconds, the second pillar after around 9 seconds, and the third pillar will spawn 12 seconds in. If these pillars aren't destroyed within the Rune of the Trembling Earth phase, they'll despawn. Now these pillars have 3.8 million health each, and you have roughly 20 seconds to kill all 3 of them. To pull these numbers off, you really do need your DPS to save whatever cooldowns they have for these pillars.
However, for a first kill, it's unrealistic really to have your entire raid to save their cooldowns just for these pillars, as you probably won't make the DPS requirement on the boss. So you'll need to find a balance of who needs to use their cooldowns on what yourself. Now for our first kill, we just had our boomkins save all their cooldowns. However, we did actually have 5.
Yeah.
We had 5 boomkins available. And boomkins are just absolutely insane at killing them. Now the best way of killing the pillars is actually spreading your DPS across them in 3 preset groups. We have our melee group, including our tanks, to kill the very first pillar that spawns. And when it does spawn, we have dots from our casters and our boomkins go on them. As soon as the second one spawns, all the ranged DPS swap to that, plus boomkin dots. And when the third one spawns, we just have our entire boomkin team switch to it and just blow it up. Now you need to destroy these pillars because when they die, they actually create a physical block in the room in which you need to hide behind for a cast that happens after this Trembling Earth phase called Call of the Mountain. This is a 5-second cast that will flat out one-hit you if you're within line of sight of the boss, and he'll cast this ability 3 times. So as this cast is about to finish, you need to make sure you're behind one of these pillars. Now the reason why you need all 3 pillars is because in between each of these Call of the Mountains, he'll also do a Rippling Smash on top of one of the pillars, which will flat out destroy it. So you need to move to a new pillar each time. Now this particular phase, this Rune of the Trembling Earth phase, happens every 3 minutes, so it lines up with most cooldowns perfectly. However, the first one happens roughly 1 minute and 10 seconds into the fight, so whatever DPS you assign to use their cooldowns on these pillars will have to sit on them until that point.
So to pretty much summarize this Rune of the Trembling Earth phase, move from the little circles underneath you, kill the pillars, and then for each Call of the Mountain, hide behind one of the broken pillars, and then of course just move to the next one, making sure that you avoid the Rippling Smash, and that's pretty much about it. Now the boss still does the Rune of the Grasping Earth phase, which is the hand coming out of the ground and grabbing you so you don't get knocked up in the air and you've got to kill their hands. This does work the exact same way in Mythic, except the hands have significantly more health. Now for the hands to die quickly, it is vital that you position your DPS in correct locations so they're in range of all the hands and the hands can die relatively quickly. For you to pull off these locations every single time can take a while, but you can get an add-on called Exorcist Raid Tools to help you out. Now before you pull the boss, if you go into the add-on, go under the boss mods tab, click on Kromog, and you'll get a window that displays all of the hand locations. From here you can assign players to certain hands and share it with the rest of your raid team who are also using the add-on. Now when the hand spawns, an arrow will appear on your screen and will direct you to your hand each and every time, so you won't get confused and people won't be on top of each other.
It holds your hand.
I'm sad now, but either way, it's a decent add-on, would recommend you use it. There's a link to it in the description of the video.
Now the hitbox of the hands themselves are actually really large, so you can essentially place your boomkins anywhere for their starfalls to hit them. Hunters, you really want an either on the left or the right hand side, right on the edges, so their barrage can hit maximum targets. If you're BM, you really want your pet to cleave off the middle clump of hands, so make sure you do have your pet on them. Rets are awesome in the middle because their Divine Storm will actually hit everything, more or less. And Death Knights are just flat out insane now with Necrotic Plague, so you can pretty much put them anywhere as well. But just to save us going through every single class, just position your DPS so they get the maximum benefit from their AoE abilities. And of course, just like Heroic, don't break the hands too early, otherwise you will die from the blows damage from the boss. And always make sure that you finish any hands before going back to the boss to deal any damage. And do keep in mind that sometimes after hand phases, you could potentially have a pillar phase because the 2 timers are off, and eventually that is what will happen. And if people are still in hands, they will die to the circles on the ground because they just cannot move from them. So you need to make sure that you always kill hands before you do anything else.
Now everything else in the encounter is the exact same as Heroic. Tanks, make sure you taunt on 3 stacks and make sure you move as far away as you can on the slam to minimize the amount of damage that you take. Also make sure that you are stacked on top of each other because of the split damage the boss does with his melee hits, which is very important. Also make sure that everyone moves away from the rippling smash. Make sure you try and dodge the reverberation discs as they really fucking hurt on Mythic, so don't be an idiot, move from stuff.
You want to make sure you try and organize a rotation of cooldowns for every single stone breath, even if it's something as small as like an amp or a smoke bomb, and you want to try and make sure that you have your bigger healing cooldowns available for these stone breaths when you're coming out of hand phases, because people are already going to be low, and you're going to get a stone breath when people are low. They could potentially die, but if you use a trank or a healing tide or revival, a him, anything like that, it will easily top these people off, and then they don't need to worry about it. And it's also really important that you position your raid in such a way that these the red runes, the Rune of the Crushing Earth, is not located on top of where you do actually stand for the hand phase.
Now this is really important. They have actually changed it so you don't take damage from the red runes anymore when they clap together while you're inside one of the orange hand runes. You don't actually take any damage, which is great because I died so many times during progression. So that has been fixed. However, it's still not a good idea to have these red runes very close to where you are going to be in the hands, because once you're out of your orange hand, so you're out of the Grasping Earth hand, you could just be clapped on straight away and you take a shit ton of damage, and you're most likely low because of nature damage from the hand. Anyway, it's just generally a mess. So if you can position your raid like on the far left or on the far right, depending on wherever you want to stand.
Or even right at the back of the room, right near the entrance.
It's completely up to you where you want to stand, as long as it's not near where you're going to be standing where you get picked up by the hands. Just try and keep it out of the raid and you should be absolutely fine.
Now also, like Heroic, the Frenzy does kick in at 30% health, and the Frenzy on Mythic is pretty fucking scary. You want to make sure you Bloodlust, and your tanks are going to get absolutely battered. So tanks, if you can save all your cooldowns for this point, and of course keep calling out for externals as soon as you drop, basically you just need to chain all your cooldowns.
Yeah.
Otherwise you just flat out die. It's really, really horrible. So tanks, try and stay alive. And it's at this point you really, really, really need to make sure that you have at least one solid healing cooldown for every single breath, because the breaths now are just crazy.
Yeah.
So as long as you can get that together. I mean, in this last 30% anyway, you will have a hand phase and you will also have a pillar phase. And really, if you do those properly, there's not really a lot of damage to be done anyway, because they're almost back-to-back as well, so it does give you quite a long time for your healers to sort of relax. It just, don't be scared to use a healing cooldown on a breath, and eventually you should kill the boss.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite a good boss, so you get into a bit of a rhythm, except the boss generally decides when he wants to use his abilities at random times. Sometimes he delays things for about 6 weeks, and then it suddenly everything arrives at once, but it's generally a decent boss, nowhere near as buggy as it was in the first week, so you should actually be able to kill it now without everything breaking.
Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. If this guide did help out, then please do drop us down a like. It helps us out a lot. And if you'd like to see more Blackrock Foundry guides by FatBoss, then please do click up on the annotations on your screen now. It'll take you straight to that video.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.